Have you ever wondered why we fall in love with someone we ourselves can't quite understand? Why our hearts are stirred not by the perfect person, but by the one who brings both ecstasy and agony? In that moment, is it possible that some invisible part of us is speaking? Carl Jung called this the anima and animus, the unconscious souls of the opposite gender that live deep within every human psyche. In Jung's eyes, love is not merely an emotion, it is an ancient ritual. When we fall in love, we are not simply drawn to another person out there. We are captivated by an unconscious archetype we've carried within us since the beginning of our existence. It's not an illusion, but a profound expression of our spiritual nature, reaching for wholeness. Love is the voice from the shadows inviting us into a captivating and perilous inner journey. If you've ever felt like you love someone as if you had met them in a dream long ago, then perhaps it was your anima or animus calling. You're not just loving them. You're loving an unawakened part of your own soul. And that is why in love we can feel blissful, yet confused, even despairing. Because it isn't just a relationship, it's a collision between consciousness and the unconscious. Jung once said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, their love is lacking." True love does not seek to control, but to transform. And when we understand the anima and animus, we begin to see why we love and why love at times must be a necessary tragedy that awakens us. So, what are anima and animus? Where do they come from, and how do they silently shape our emotional lives? Let us begin the next chapter, where we'll unravel these ancient principles and discover that to love another is sometimes to begin learning how to love ourselves. The origins of anima and animus, a legacy of the unconscious across generations. There is a truth few dare to face. Most romantic relationships don't fall apart because the other person was bad or changed, but because anima and animus, the unconscious figures within our psyche, can no longer be sustained by illusion. Disillusionment is not the end. It is the beginning of spiritual awakening. And in this chapter, we'll explore how anima and animus subtly manipulate modern relationships, leading us to repeat the cycle of love, pain, collapse, unaware we're being guided by the unconscious forces within. Imagine this: you enter a relationship and feel like this person is perfect, as if they were made just for you. Everything seems to align in uncanny ways: their smile, the way they speak, how they understand you, without words. But months or years later, something begins to unravel. You start to see that they are selfish, conflicted, childish, or overly rational. You feel disillusioned, as if you loved the wrong person. But no, you didn't love the wrong person. You loved the wrong part of yourself. Jung called this the shadow side of projection. When the anima or animus is projected onto another, we don't just see them as ideal, we subconsciously expect them to complete us. We believe without knowing why, if I have this person beside me, I'll never feel lonely again. But this is the subtlest form of psychological dependency, seeking the lost half of our soul outside when it can only be found within. Look around. How many people bounce from relationship to relationship only to relive the same pain? How many women are drawn to emotionally distant men, then suffer for not being loved the way they hoped? How many men fall for mysterious, fragile women, only to feel drained and empty afterward? All of these are symptoms of an unintegrated anima or animus. In today's world where everything is outward-facing, very few people pause to confront the unconscious images that rule them. We chase love as if it's a medicine, yet avoid the spiritual wound at the core. This creates karmic relationships where people don't come together to love, but to mirror each other's unresolved pain. But if you're watching this video, something inside, you may already be shifting. You may have started to ask yourself, am I loving someone just to fill a void? Do I truly see them, or just a part of myself I haven't met yet? This is where the power of awareness begins. When you can say, oh, maybe I've projected my anima onto this person, a spiritual doorway opens. You're no longer a victim of the unconscious, you become its witness and its conversation partner. You might ask, how do I know if my anima or animus is at play? The answer often arrives through intense emotion, especially obsession. When you're obsessing over someone for no clear reason, when you idolize them beyond what's real, or when you're deeply hurt by something seemingly small, that's a sign an archetype has been activated. A man gripped by his anima often feels melancholic, dreamy, emotionally dependent on his lover. A woman ruled by her animus may become overly rational, combative, and constantly feel no one is ever enough. In both cases, there is a disconnect from inner wholeness, and that is where the journey of integration must begin. Integration does not mean killing off the anima or animus. It means learning to dialogue with them as living spirits within. Jung recommended active imagination, a conscious practice of conversing with these inner figures. Ask your anima, what do you want from me? Ask your animus, why do you rage when I feel weak, and listen not with your mind but with your heart? Let's pause here. Have you ever loved someone as if they were your whole world? And when that love ended, what did you learn about yourself? Share your answer in the comments. It might help someone else walking through the dark. Let this video be a space where we illuminate the path for each other, a community learning to love with awareness. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into the process of transforming anima and animus into spiritual strength and discover why true love begins not with some other half out there, but with the wholeness already within you. Stay with the journey. The most profound revelations are still waiting to unfold. When the anima animus remains unconscious, we love through illusion. When you begin to see that love is not merely a fleeting emotion, but a gateway to healing and spiritual wholeness, you've touched the deepest layer of Carl Jung's teachings, where the anima and animus are no longer haunting projections, but become inner guides of the soul. In this chapter, we enter the stage Jung called the transformation of anima and animus, the process of turning projected illusions into living inner forces that serve the journey toward our true self. This is no longer blind love, nor the guarded intellect, but love illuminated by consciousness. Picture a man who throughout his life feels irresistibly drawn to mysterious, dreamy, emotionally rich women. He calls them his soulmates, but the story always ends in heartbreak and confusion. One day, instead of blaming the woman, he turns inward and asks, why do I need this image so badly? What part of me am I seeking through her? That's the moment transformation begins. The anima shifts from a projected fantasy into an inner soul figure, a sacred feminine within. She no longer appears as the ideal lover, but as a source of creative inspiration, a gentle voice guiding intuition, a channel to the depths of his soul. In parallel, a woman may have long been obsessed with the image of the ideal man, strong, decisive someone who will lead her through all of life's chaos. Without him, she often feels incomplete. But then she begins to ask, can I make decisions on my own? Can I say no without fearing abandonment? Then the animus evolves from a harsh inner critic or dominating male image into a calm, empowering force of clarity, reason, and protective boundaries. No longer the voice that says you need him to be enough, he becomes the inner strength that whispers you already are. This transformation does not happen overnight. It is the fruit of courage, the courage to walk through illusion, to face the unconscious forces that once ruled you, and to accept that we do not love in order to be rescued, but to grow alongside another. As Jung once wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This process often brings with it a sense of emptiness. When projections fade, we are no longer swept away by blind passion. Some mistake this for emotional numbness, but in truth, it is freedom. No longer driven by unconscious compulsion, you can love with clarity. Love is no longer dependency, it becomes conscious connection. Such love does not arise from the fear of losing it, grows from wholeness. You are no longer seeking someone to complete you. You seek someone who can awaken with you. Take a moment to reflect and share with the community in the comments. Where are you right now in your own journey of love? Have you ever projected an ideal onto someone? And what did you learn from that experience? Our community continues to grow souls learning how to love with awareness. Be a part of this journey. Your story might be the light someone else needs. In the next section, we'll take a more practical turn. How do you actually integrate the anima and animus in everyday life? What exercises can help you dialogue with the unconscious? How can you tell the difference between true love and unconscious projection? And most importantly, how do you stay whole in love even when the other person doesn't love you back? Stay tuned, because the journey of discovering the soul is the journey of discovering real love. The role of anima and animus in spiritual maturation. As the anima and animus begin to transform, they are no longer illusions we seek in others, but living, vibrant inner forces, creative, soulful, and deeply transformative. But the real question is, how do we live with them in daily life? How do we move beyond simply understanding anima and animus and actually integrate them into every breath, every relationship, every decision? Carl Jung never stopped at theory. For him, psychology was a living mystical journey, one that required conscious practice. In this chapter, we'll explore practical tools to turn your insight into anima and animus into inner strength, and ultimately into a form of love no longer controlled by the unconscious. 1. Active imagination, a dialogue with the unconscious. This is a meditative technique developed by Jung. Rather than just observing your emotions, you step into a conscious dialogue with your inner images, as if they are living beings. Picture an empty room. Invite in your anima if you're a man or animus if you're a woman. What do they look like? What do they say? Are they angry, sad, resentful? Do you fear them? Have you abandoned them? Write it down. Draw them. Speak to them as you would to an old friend who's been waiting for you your whole life. This is not fantasy. This is a meeting, a reunion with a lost part of your soul. 2. Emotional journaling, tracing the projections. Each time you feel an overwhelming emotional reaction, too much love, anger, longing, write it down. I felt angry when she didn't text me back. I felt abandoned when he didn't protect me. I felt worthless when they walked away. Then ask, is this reaction really about them, or is it a reflection of an old wound inside me? Each sentence is a step toward reclaiming your power from others and bringing it home to yourself. 3. Turning love into a path of practice. Instead of seeing love as a goal, view it as a mirror for your inner incompleteness. When love hurts, don't rush to heal too quickly. Stay with the pain. Listen to what it wants to reveal. Maybe it's the anima saying, I need you to honor your sadness. Maybe it's the animus crying, I need you to stand up for yourself. At that moment, love is no longer just a personal feeling. It becomes a gateway to your truest being. 4. Working with dreams. Anima and animus often appear as male or female figures in your dreams. Record them. Ask, what do they represent? Do they guide you, judge you, seduce you, or scare you? Dreams are the language of the unconscious. When you learn to read them, you begin to decode your soul in its own dialect. And then something magical happens. You begin to realize you no longer need someone to save you. You stop repeating the cycle of falling in love, getting hurt, becoming disillusioned, and unconsciously repeating it all over again. You begin to choose love with clarity. And when you love, you don't lose yourself. You become more whole, more free, more alive. You become you through love. Now I invite you to share. Have you ever felt that love is the place where you're most seen, but also most wounded? Have you ever wondered if that wound is the voice of an unheard anima or animus within? Write your thoughts in the comments. We are walking this journey together not to become perfect, but to become whole. You are not alone. This community is growing a space for courageous souls ready to love, to look within, and to touch the darkness in order to find their light. And in the next and final chapter of this video series, we will bring everything together in one final inspired vision. How can we live love as a sacred ritual? How do we love someone without losing ourselves? And how do we turn even the briefest encounters into opportunities for healing? Don't miss it. The most beautiful part always comes at the end of the journey. To love is a path of awakening, not just emotion, but consciousness. If love were merely a passing wave of emotion, it would never have captivated, wounded, and resurrected the human heart for thousands of years. In the deeper dimensions of Carl Jung's work, love is not just the bond between two people. It is the mystical journey of the soul seeking to reclaim a lost part of itself. And when you have passed through the shadow of projection, the pain of disillusionment, and the stillness of inner transformation, you arrive at the threshold of something sacred, love as a ritual of awakening. At this stage, you no longer love to be filled to escape loneliness or to complete yourself. You love because you have become whole within. The other is no longer a savior, no longer a missing half, but a living mirror, reflecting you back to yourself with stunning clarity. Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Love, then, is not a destination. It is a mutual alchemy where each partner becomes not just a lover, but a spiritual teacher to the other. In this conscious connection, anima and animus are no longer unseen forces pulling the strings. They become sacred bridges between self and other consciousness and unconsciousness, human and divine. Here love arises not from lack, but from abundance. No longer fueled by the need to control, possess, or prove, love becomes presence. Pure presence. You look at one another with new eyes, the eyes of someone who has walked through darkness and brought back the light. You'll know you've entered this space when you can love without fear of rejection. You can walk away without feeling abandoned. You can stay without losing your freedom. You can cry for someone without losing your self-worth. And you can bless the one who leaves as if they were a gift from destiny itself. In this space of awakened love, the anima becomes the muse, the inner goddess, who guides the man toward creativity, intuition, and deep connection to life. The animus becomes the inner protector in a woman, strong, decisive, and radiating safety from within. There is no more blaming, no more clinging, only freedom and presence. Now take a moment to reflect. Are you loving with awareness, or are you reliving old patterns, repeating unintegrated unconscious scripts? Have you ever experienced a moment in love where you saw yourself not through words but in the mirror of someone's eyes? Share that moment in the comments below. Our community is more than just viewers. It is a circle of awakening souls walking the path of love as a journey back to the self. Your story might be a spark for someone else's healing. Don't hesitate to leave your soul's footprint here. And if you've made it this far with me, know that you've entered a rare space where psychology meets soul, where inner science becomes a path of everyday devotion. In the final part of this series, we'll arrive at the heart of it all. How can we apply everything we've explored to daily life? How do we make every experience of love an awakening, not an escape? And most importantly, how do we love without losing ourselves? Don't miss the closing chapter, because in it, we'll not only speak of anima and animus, we'll speak of you as a living symbol of the union between the unconscious and the light. Defining anima and animus, the inner soul of the opposite gender. When Carl Jung looked into the human soul, he saw far more than surface behaviors. He saw underground rivers, invisible symbols, and ancient spirits living within each modern individual. Among the most powerful of these inner images are the anima and animus, the unconscious archetypes of the opposite gender that dwell deep within all of us. To understand them is not just to understand love, it is to open the door to our truest self. Anima, according to Jung, is the feminine image within a man's soul. Animus is the masculine presence living in a woman's psyche. But let us not confuse this with biological gender. This is not about sex, it's about principle. These are the hidden programs shaping how we love, how we dream, how we despair, how we yearn for someone without knowing why. From childhood, the first impressions of the opposite sex, our mother, father, teachers' first loves, are etched into the unconscious. Over time, they form the templates of our anima or animus. As we grow, we begin searching for these inner imprints in the outer world, unaware that we're actually looking for a lost piece of our own soul. A man may be powerfully drawn to a gentle, dreamy, soulful woman, not simply for who she is, but because she awakens the anima within him. He loves the feeling of reconnecting with his inner world, with the part of himself he often hides. Likewise, a woman may find herself melting in the presence of a strong, logical, decisive man because her animus has stirred. But here is where love becomes dangerous. We are not truly in love with the person. We are in love with the inner image we've projected onto them. Jung called this phenomenon projection. Like a film projector casting shadows onto a screen, we shine our anima or animus onto the other. But one day the screen tears. The person no longer fits the dream. We feel disillusioned, heartbroken, angry. But the truth is, they were never our dream. We imagined them to be. This is the ancient tragedy of love, and also the beginning of spiritual awakening. Ask yourself, have you ever loved someone who made you feel whole? And when that love fell apart, did it feel like you lost a part of your soul? If your answer is yes, then congratulations. Your anima or animus is calling you home. When the projection fades, you are left with two choices: either search for another person to repeat the cycle, or turn inward and begin the journey of integration. Jung called this individuation, the process of uniting the conscious self with the unconscious. Anima is not just an object of love, she is a bridge to intuition, emotion, and the deep inner life within a man. When a man integrates his anima, he becomes whole creative and no longer fears emotional depth. Animus within a woman is the voice of reason, will, and discernment. When a woman integrates her animus, she becomes independent, clear-minded, and no longer relies on some ideal man out there. Love, then, is no longer a search for the missing half. It becomes a meeting from a place of inner wholeness. You don't need someone to complete you. You are love itself. Pause for a moment and reflect. The one you once loved so deeply, what part of you did? They reflect that you had never dared to touch. Feel free to share your answer in the comments. We are building a community learning to love with awareness, where every love story becomes a mirror of inner transformation. In the next section, we'll explore how Anima and Animus manipulate modern relationships, why these archetypes lead us to repeat the same cycles of love, pain, and disillusionment, and how we can break free to love with truth and freedom. Don't miss it. The journey has only just begun. As you reach the end of this journey, where the shadows have been seen, the projections dissolved, and the soul begins to awaken in the light, you are no longer the person you were before. You no longer simply understand the Anima and Animus. You become a living witness to the inner union, and that is something sacred. Carl Jung never urged us to heal the unconscious just to be normal. On the contrary, he invited us into the labyrinth of the soul so that we might be reborn with an entirely new awareness that every human being is an unspoken mystery. And love, when lived with awareness, is the greatest symbol of that transformation. You see, love is no longer about finding the right person or avoiding the wrong one. It becomes a daily path of self-discovery through the mirror of another's face. Whether they stay or go, they are an essential part of the process of becoming who you truly are. Anima and Animus, in the end, are not academic concepts. They are the symbols of our inner life, parts of us that have long gone unheard. When you love, when you hurt, when you hope, fall, and rise again, you are living alongside these archetypes. There is no shame in having projected, no weakness in having been broken. Because within that very breaking, a door has opened for you to step into yourself. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Light does not come from denying darkness. It comes when you are brave enough to walk into it, embrace it, and say, "I see you. I'm no longer afraid of you." And at that moment, love is no longer an emotional game, but a sacred ritual of the soul. If you've made it here, perhaps this video has touched something deeply real within you. A memory, a wound yet to heal, an unfinished love, or a quiet knowing that there's something more sacred in the way we love. I invite you to share in the comments. What have you realized through this video? Where do you see yourself in the journey of Anima and Animus? Has your experience of love been a projection or a call back home to yourself? This community exists to listen, to heal, and to walk together. No one journeys alone, because in one person's darkness, there is always light shining from another's story. And if you found value in this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Every week, we'll go deeper into Jungian psychology, living symbols, and ways to live fully without losing your soul. As Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But that is also the beginning of everything beautiful. See you in the next video, where we'll continue this sacred dialogue with the soul. And remember, love does not begin with another. Love begins the moment you dare to look deeply into your own heart.